Good morning and welcome to Read Aloud 3, where it is you, me, and the Trinity. And we are reading in the book of 2 Kings. We have finished chapter 20 and we'll be moving on to chapter 21 today. But first, I wanted to stop there, pause, and reflect on chapter 20. There were some things that just kind of made me curious and want to look up some additional commentary about King Hezekiah and some of his responses towards the end of that chapter 20. So I'm going to go to a commentary site called Enduring Word, and there were some notes that I took, and that I definitely was glad that I looked up and able to share. And then there were just some more points, so I'm going right to the site to also share those. So first of all, in 2 Chronicles 32:24 through 26 tells us that Hezekiah, and I got this from the site, so I'll pull it up in scripture as well, so that we're cross-referencing basically. Tells us that Hezekiah did not respond rightly to his gift of healing. Okay, so let's take a look at that scripture, 2 Chronicles 32:24 through 26. Sorry. And then 24 through 26. Okay. There's a subtitle above verse 24 that says Hezekiah's sickness and recovery. So here we are in a different book talking about it. Verse 24. About that time, Hezekiah became deathly ill. He prayed to the Lord who healed him and gave him a miraculous sign. But Hezekiah, this is verse 25, did not respond appropriate to the kindness shown him, and he became proud. You think we can see that, right? So the Lord's anger came against him and against Judah and Jerusalem. Oh, one more verse. Then Hezekiah humbled himself and repented of his pride, as did the people of Jerusalem. So the Lord's anger did not fall on them during Hezekiah's lifetime. Okay, so then there were a couple of other points to be made. Because if you'll remember, he had a word from Isaiah, and it was after he had shown all his palace and possessions to the Babylonians who were, checking in on him, apparently, right? Maybe doing something customary between royals, like, oh, we heard you were very sick and near death, and we want to bring you a gift. Or, as I was reading, it could have also been a very political ploy. But the way that Hezekiah responds, and then Isaiah gave him a word from the Lord, and then Hezekiah was like, oh, well, sounds good. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. Do you remember? So that was pretty shocking too. So let's see. Hezekiah's reception of Babylonian envoys, first of all. He bears his riches. This is in verses 12 and 13. It says, he bears the riches of his kingdom out of pride. And so we can imagine that this is from the Enduring Word site, flattering for King Hezekiah. After all, Judah was a lowly nation with little power, and Babylon was a junior superpower. To receive this notice and recognition, he got the letter and they wanted to come and bring him a gift, remember, from the king of Babylon, must have really made Hezekiah feel he was important. The pride of life is what he was dealing with, we might say, not spiritual pride like his great-grandfather Uzziah. That's what it said in the article. It was his precious things that he really wanted to show off, right? And in light of that, there's more here that I wanted to just draw our attention to on this site. It says, Hezekiah faced and failed under a temptation common to many, especially those in ministry, the temptation of success. Many men who stand strong against the temptations of failure and weakness fail under the temptations of success and strength. Think about the extent of Hezekiah's success. Remember at the beginning of his reign and how it talked about him very differently. He was godly. He was victorious. He was healed. We went through that. He had experienced a miracle. He had been promised a long life. He had connection to a great prophet, Isaiah. He had seen a remarkable sign. He was wealthy. He was famous. He was praised and honored. He was honored by God. Then the next section says, nevertheless, he sinned after this great gift of 15 more years of life and the deliverance of Jerusalem. We might say that Hezekiah sinned in at least 5 ways. Pride, in that he was proud of the honors the Babylonians brought. Ingratitude, in that he took honor to himself that really belonged to God. Abusing the gifts given to him, where he took the gifts and favors to his own honor and gratification of his lusts. And we can hear about that. Well, we did just read in 2 Chronicles, because he was prideful. That was the same reference. 2 Chronicles 32:25-26. Carnal confidence, in that he trusted in the coalition he had made with the king of Babylon. Missing opportunity, in that he had a great opportunity to testify to the Babylonian envoys about the greatness of God. They were coming to his place, remember? And the Lord's blessing of Judah. Instead, he glorified himself. Yeah, we could see that. So why did he not show these learned heathen God's house, every whit of which showeth his glory? It says Psalm 29:9. There he could have explained to them the meaning of the brazen altar and the sacrifices offered thereon. And who can tell what the results might not have been in the souls of these idolaters, right? Of the Babylonians. So there was like, one other thing I wanted to read down further. Let me see if I can find it. This. This is a little bit where it says, there is no doubt that Hezekiah started out as a godly king, and overall his reign was one of outstanding godliness. 2 Kings 18:3-7. Yet his beginning was much better than his end. We don't want to hear that, right? Hezekiah did not finish well. God gave Hezekiah the gift of 15 more years of life. Sorry, I wish I had water right here, but I don't, so I'm not gonna go. But what I will do is grab a cough drop. Excuse me, I hope that doesn't really interfere with my reading. Okay. God gave, and yes, but the added years did not make him a better or more godly man. Okay. Let's take this with us. This is a lesson. Time or age doesn't necessarily make us any better. Consider that time does nothing but pass away. We sometimes say, time will tell, time will heal, or time will bring out the potential in me. But time will do nothing of the sort. Time will only come and go. It is only how we use time that matters, right? Hezekiah didn't make good use of the extra time the Lord gave him. And I thought that this article brought it out well, that within some of the things he could have done, instead of lifting up his own personal pride and kingdom, and even not caring for the next generation. I think that's the part I may have overlooked. which I wanted to kind of just touch on really quickly too. Let's see. It says in verses 19 and 20, Hezekiah's curious reaction, remember, to Isaiah's word from God after he showed the Babylonians around. It says, excuse me, so Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "The word of the Lord which you have spoken is good." For he said, "Will there not be peace and truth, at least in my days?" Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, all his might, and how he made a pool and a tunnel, brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? So Hezekiah rested with his fathers, and then Manasseh his son reigned in his place. The word of the Lord, this is from the article, the word of the Lord which you have spoken is good. This was a sad state of heart in the king of Judah. God announced coming judgment, and all he could respond was relief that it would not happen in his lifetime. In this, Hezekiah showed himself to be almost the exact opposite of an others-centered person. He was almost totally self-centered. All he cared about was his own personal comfort and success. So that's just another thing I wanted to punch, is because, that ultimately shows what kind of a man you are, or king. Certainly, if you are not other-centered, then you are going in the wrong direction, right? So just something to really keep in mind, that the whole success thing was a real lure to him, feeling, allowing pride to rise up in him, and it just really took him away from being that godly man who we would recognize as godly. Now, let's get back to 2 Kings chapter 21 for today. All right, thanks for your patience. I'm glad that you are here with me today, and that hopefully, you can pause here if you want, because we have quite a bit of time already just reflecting on our last chapter, and now I want to go ahead and read the next one today. Okay, so Manasseh rules in Judah. That's where we left off. This is his son Manasseh became king, or became the next king. Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king. Isn't that always shocking? And he reigned in Jerusalem 55 years. His mother was Hephzibah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, following the detestable practices of the pagan nations. I guess, yeah. We had already heard that Judah was a bit judged by Hezekiah's, act of pride. Okay, so let's see. He did what was, okay, following the detestable practices of the pagan nations that the Lord had driven from the land ahead of the Israelites. He rebuilt the pagan shrines his father Hezekiah had destroyed. He constructed altars for Baal and set up an Asherah pole. He's probably very easily influenced. He's a 12-year-old, right? For one. And I'm just thinking, if the people were not really out of those practices well, it was easy for them to return under not good leadership. Okay, he also bowed before all the powers of the heavens and worshipped them. Okay, it's not just his youth, for certain, because we know that there have been others in their youth who have stood very powerfully for God, like David. He was a youth when he stood up for God. Okay. He built pagan altars in the temple of the Lord and placed the place where the Lord had said, "My name will remain in Jerusalem forever." He built these altars for all the powers of the heavens in both courtyards of the Lord's temple. Manasseh also sacrificed his own son in the fire. And there's a reference about that, so I'll go ahead and read it. Or also made his son pass through the fire, which is, sometimes what we understand from that. He practiced sorcery and divination, and he consulted with mediums and psychics. He did much that was evil in the Lord's sight, arousing his anger. Yeah, I just said that. I say sometimes I think in our age and culture, we think, oh, this is like horoscopes and things like this. It's not a big deal, right? But I think it is. Okay, verse 7. Manasseh even made a carved image of Asherah, like the Asherah poles, and set it up in the temple, the very place where the Lord had told David and his son Solomon, "My name will be honored forever in this temple and in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen from among the tribes of Israel. If the Israelites will be careful to obey my commands, all the laws my servant Moses gave them, I will not send them into exile from this land, and I gave from this land that I gave their ancestors." But the people refused to listen, and Manasseh led them to do even more evil than the pagan nations that the Lord had destroyed when the people of Israel entered the land. Then the Lord said through his servants, the prophets, "King Manasseh of Judah has done many detestable things. He is even more wicked than the Amorites who lived in this land before Israel. He has caused the people of Judah to sin with his idols. So this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I will bring such disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that the ears of those who hear about it will tingle with horror. I will judge Jerusalem." Just a moment. Yes?
You busy?
Just for a moment. Okay. "By the same standard I used for Samaria and the same measure I used for the family of Ahab, I will wipe away the people of Jerusalem as one wipes a dish and turns it upside down. Then I will reject even the remnant of my people who are left, and I will hand them over as plunder for their enemies. For they have done great evil in my sight and have angered me ever since their ancestors came out of Egypt." Manasseh also murdered many innocent people until Jerusalem was filled from one end to the other with innocent blood. This was in addition to the sin that he caused the people of Judah to commit, leading them to do evil in the Lord's sight. The rest of the events in Manasseh's reign and everything he did, including the sins he committed, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Manasseh died, he was buried in the palace garden, the garden of Uzzah. Then his son Amon became the next king. Okay, what's coming with Amon? There's just a short bit left of this chapter, and the subtitle is Amon Rules in Judah. Amon was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 2 years. His mother was Meshulameth, the daughter of Haruz from Jotbah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his father Manasseh had done. He followed the example of his father, worshiping the same idols his father had worshipped. He abandoned the Lord, the God of his ancestors, and he refused to follow the Lord's ways. Then Amon's own officials conspired against him and assassinated him in his palace. But the people of the land killed all those who had conspired against King Amon, and they made his son Josiah the next king. The rest of the events, I was trying to remember, is Josiah a good king? It might be. Okay. The rest of the events in Amon's reign and what he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. He was buried in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah. Then his son Josiah became the next king. a lot in that study / reading of the chapter of scripture today. So I hope that you got something out of it, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing to read through the Bible together. See you tomorrow.